All right, everybody. Hey, we are honored. Our next podcast rock star who's doing some amazing stuff out there. He's here to provide not just one, but many probably big tips over the next 30 minutes here. Is the one, the only Jeff Mendelson join us from the One Big Tip podcast. What is going on, Jeff? How's your day going?
Doing great, man. I went to my co-working space yesterday, for funsies, right? Because I haven't been there in like 6 months.
Yeah.
And you know something? I'm starting to like working from home again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I set myself up with 3 monitors. I got the nice webcam. Like I really decked it out, right? And then if you got to pack everything up into a backpack and go to a co-working space, it's just not the same anymore, man.
It is not
So,
the same. Amen to that. I've been working home from 6 months, and I've got an office. I actually have an office that I have in a high rise up here. Gorgeous view, but I'm like, it's nice to have that less than 30-second commute to the office every day, right?
yeah, I think I got you beat by about 7 seconds. So.
There you go. Exactly. Now, let's talk about your podcast journey and the One Big Tip podcast. How did you get started? Tell us a little about the podcast and what your focus is with it.
Sure. So, just very quickly, I have, I, you know, it, I've taken like a rather unconventional journey towards all this. Actually, I started my first podcast called the Blog This Podcast about 7 years ago with a partner, and we didn't get past 7 episodes. And now I understand why. I was just starting my divorce. She had no time, and it was just bandwidth wasn't there, and she was in a different time zone, so it was just it just didn't work. So I've always wanted to start this thing up again, right? And then when I got to the point where I had all this criteria for myself, right? And what it was an exercise in building a personal brand, right? Because everything I built until now has been all about like building a company. That's why I have companies like Less Tech, Effectivo.Social, things like that. And I always wanted to look bigger than I actually am, right? So you don't see the army of contractors behind me, right? And when I decided on this journey, let me tell you, doing your own personal brand for yourself, hands down the hardest project I've ever worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because, like all of a sudden, you don't have a client who's paying you money, first of all, to do the work. Right. And second of all, you have a very limited set of people that you can ask for their opinion. Right. Because, everyone's going to be nice to you. Yeah, Jeff, that's great, man. So and also when I finally so I'm like, okay, I got the personal branding down, created the website, created the whole offering over there. And then when it came down to the podcast, and that took me another 6 months to a year to put together, right? And what it was that it was all this criteria, right? First I felt that I needed all the badass gear, right? So got the nice microphone, got the beautiful webcam, just everything, right? And then when I was all decked out in gear, I was like, okay, well, okay, that's it, man. You got to start recording something. And at first I was like, how the hell am I going to get 4 people a month to talk to me? Right. How is that going to happen? And first of all, friends and family, stepped up, and I interviewed them, and it turned out to be great. And the criteria that I was putting together for myself was I wanted it to be quick. I didn't want to create a new job for myself, editing a 2 hour or 2 hour, either a video cast or for a podcast. So what I did was I'm like, all right, got the face for radio. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it podcast for now. Right. And also I wanted something quick. So that's how I came up with the one big tip. What's the one thing that you'll share to help other people, to do well in their business, right? Because I've listened to hours and hours and hours of podcasts, but, I have a big problem, especially now that I'm not traveling so much, right? Is that, those 45-minute to an hour interviews, they're all really packed with value, right? But if you're driving, who cares? I can't take notes, right?
Yeah.
My hands are on the steering wheel. Like, how am I going to, oh, he mentioned this great app. I gotta use it. Can't really do that. So my premise is to speak with someone, do a quick introduction, get their one big tip and talk about it. And some of the additional filters I put in there was it's got to be actionable, it's got to be measurable, and it's got to be tangible, right? So it's not a dream, not a concept, not a mindset, right? Those are great. I've talked to a lot of people about those, right? But it's got to be something that you can actively put together, right? And that's how I came up with the one big tip. And I purposely keep the interviews usually to about between 10 to 20 minutes. And I think the longest I went was 30, but that was only because she was just dropping bombs, left and right. But yeah, that's basically how I got to it. And the people who want to get interviewed just keep on coming. And
Mm.
and I think that's a really great sign. Right now, if I don't change anything, I went from once a week to twice a week dropping the episodes, and I still have a backlog of interviews that haven't heard the light of day until May of next year. So
Wow.
that's like the next project that I have to work on, is figuring out how I'm going to get those, out there sooner, and also be able to keep the momentum of getting the stuff out there. And, like, you know, one of the things that people don't realize, right, about podcasts is that it does take time and it does take money, right? I mean, I have a digital marketing agency, so I already have the staff that can help me out with it, right? So, it ends up taking, like there's like 30 some steps that each episode needs to go through to be processed, right? Part of that is me just being anal, right? But the other part is, the value that I'm trying to deliver here, because every podcast needs to be transcribed. Every podcast needs a well-written 700 to 1,000 word blog post. Every podcast needs some social media assets, right? The squares and the rectangles that, we put in Canva, and we need to fish out the actionable quotes that happen during the interview. So there's a lot that goes into it. But I'll tell you something. I wish I would have done this so long ago,
Mm-hmm.
because there is no better networking tool than podcasting, right? You can literally just call up people and say like, hey, would you like to be on my show? And now I'm on a first name basis with them, right? It's like uh, the caliber of people that have come on, right? At first I was like, oh, I'm not, they're A-listers or they're B-listers. They're never going to talk. They're just as human as I am, right? And as soon as they see the baby Yoda, now we have something to talk about. And, like we can sit there and schmooze it. And it's great because now I'm in a position where I can really connect people, right?
Mm.
Where I can really go, oh yeah, I interviewed this guy. He's got a really great thing. You really need to go and talk to him, right? Or her. So it's been a great ride.
I love it. I love it. You answered a couple questions. I was going to ask you the biggest surprise. Obviously, for me, has also been that first name basis. A lot of people, and how I think podcasters are really one of the friendliest bunch of people to work together or to outsource or refer other resources. Where a lot of times in the normal business world, not so easy to get things referred to, right?
That's correct. I think one of the other big things is, understanding why you're podcasting, right? So I get now on the daily, right? I get all these offers like, oh yeah, start your podcast, and you're going to make $10,000 more a month doing this. And it's like, well, yeah, that's not everybody, right? And what I found was that you don't need the big numbers
Mm-hmm.
to make this a worthwhile endeavor. I'll give you a quick example. One of my clients is a commercial landscape designer, right? So he's not some guy with a truck that'll go and trim your shrubs. He puts the palm trees on the rooftop decks of 40-story towers, right? That's what he does, right? And he only does commercial properties like that, right? And he's a good friend of mine. He asked me like, okay, Jeff, like, how are you? Like, I want some new ideas on how I could build up my business. And I told him, start a podcast. And he's like that shy guy. He speaks really slow. But I'm like, listen, what would happen if you were to invite Bjork Engels, right? That guy from Denmark who builds all the crazy buildings.
Yeah, the
What would happen if
treehouse.
you were to invite him on your podcast, right? And just nerd out on architecture for 30 minutes, right? What would that do for your business? And he's like, that would blow up my business. I'm like, okay, there you go. Then, and really all it takes is one, for somebody at that level, each one of his contracts are in the mid six figures anyways, right? That's the only way this guy rolls, right? So doing something like that, I mean, he can then go and interview the top property developer in Miami, or the top property developer in New York or Atlanta or Milwaukee or wherever it is, and people will listen to him. And it's not that he needs 10,000 downloads
Right.
or a million downloads. I mean, no, I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan here, right? We all go back to that thing where he sold his podcast to Spotify. Good on him, right? That's all great, right? What I'm in it for is the networking and being able to connect people, and that I see the effects. The payoff is much bigger, even without the numbers.
Yeah, I agree that the more you know your why and your niche, you're not everybody's a listener to everybody's show. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we see a lot of podcasters making is being too broad or general in topic or nature. They never really identify with a true north audience to serve them. They're too busy all over the place, right?
Exactly. I mean, I think that so like, let's just take the one big tip, right? I mean, it's, while I have my own personal true north, right? You could argue that the topics I talk about are a little scattered, right? But, for the most part, they are actionable tips and it's not a great investment on your time, right? You can listen to this while driving to the supermarket, not when you're driving to Disney with the kids, right? Because if you really want to bore your kids, turn on a podcast while you're driving, right? And what happens is that it really, it makes your presentation skills better. It makes you a better conversationalist, right? And it's not like, like you need to go on script each and every time, right? What you really need to do is just make sure that you have a good enough premise that fits within your overall goal of what it is that you're trying to do, and then you go and make it happen. And for me, it was like, 4 guests turned to 10, 10 turned to 20, 20 turned to 40, 40 turned to 60. And I was like, wait a second, there are only 52 weeks in a year, man. How am I going to do this? And even when I switched it to 2 days a week, they just kept on coming. I think I just interviewed my 135th person yesterday. And, I almost feel bad because I start out each conversation in a pre-call. I'm like, oh, by the way, did you see the big print that this isn't going to drop until March or May? They're like, yeah, we're cool with it. So, it's all good. And basically what this does, by the way, is that since I have these recordings already put to bed, right, that are already scheduled out, now I can go and focus on the other stuff, right? Now I can go and focus on, creating a virtual summit or creating the course to show how I did it, right? And that is the most interesting part for me because because once you have the platform where you can get up on your soapbox and actually talk about something, then you can morph it into whatever you want. I mean, all I need to do now is, once I launch my course, I just need to edit, put in a 15-second, commercial in between the intro and the actual interview, and then boom, I'm done.
Yeah, then you're monetizing. Then you're basically monetizing yourself and filling your funnel for what I mean. You're already filling your funnel, pre-filling it with all these episodes and building loyalty and a following and your message and personal branding for it, so it becomes an easy thing on the back end because you've already got your audience of listeners who are ready to like, love, and trust you, right?
Exactly. And I think also, like a lot of these people that I'm interviewing, like even if I was to meet them at a convention, I always kind of like, well, would this person actually talk to me? Would they, you kind of get this, some people have that holier than thou, persona about them. And then when you get them on the podcast, it's like, they're just regular people. They have warm red blood just like I do. So it's all good.
Yeah, they put their pants on one leg at a time and wipe their ass with multiply toilet paper is the way I always think about it.
Exactly.
what what has been what's something that's popped up besides the networking and things like that? What's been something that's popped up from you with your podcast that just surprised the heck out of you?
Well, all right, I'm going to be a little mean here, right?
Fine.
First of all, I would say first of all, the people that try to get on my show that don't read the filter, right? That's kind of annoying. And also, like just trying to make sure, like, I'll tell you what was the hardest part was, at least for the first 3 months, I just went through, interviewing a bunch of people,
Yeah.
right? And at one point, I just broke down like, why the hell am I busting my ass here, providing them a platform, right? And at first I was like, oh, do I quit now? Do I do this? Do I do that? And it's like, no, just keep on going. It's like it's all good. Like I already got the hang of it, right? I already got my processes down, so it's not like these are necessarily a big tax on my time. But at the same time, it's like you do need to be careful about now how you do this. So what I did was I set up a few filters, right? Where you can't just go and schedule to be on the show. You have to fill out a form that you articulate your one big tip first, right? And then I see it and then decide, right? And then once I decide, like, okay, you get them scheduled, it makes this whole process a lot easier. So, using Zapier, it goes and it adds it to my active campaign. Then it goes and adds it to my project management tool. It sends me a text message on my phone that, hey, someone else signed up. It puts a to-do item in my things to-do list, to go friend the guy on LinkedIn. It also creates a one sheet, that basically like my prep
Right.
for each interview is maybe about 10-15 minutes, right? Because it's not like I'm going in, like going to ask them like these really deep questions. It's like they already told me what it is that they want to talk about, right? So literally my prep before the actual call, 10 minutes before, is, just go check out their sheet and whatever links they gave me, right? Once I got that down, it's smooth sailing all the way down.
Yeah, I would tell you, yeah, I 100% agree. Anytime you can implement things, whether it's just using Calendly and adding to Calendly to put everything in one spot, it's one of the easiest things to save your time, because time can get eaten up really fast with everything in podcasting if you let it, you know.
Exactly, because again, there are really those 30 things. You got to make the quote cards, got to write the social media. Someone's got to write the blog post. Someone's got to proof the blog post. Someone's got to listen to the audio that my audio guy sent back to me to make sure that he cut it right. All of that needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly. What would you, where's your show going? I mean, you're out till May of next year. What does the next 12 or 24 months hold for the One Big Tip for you? What's your future plans? Or you mentioned you're doing a course or launching an event. That sound like what's the big future plans
Yeah,
for you?
so those are the next steps. So my main business, my main hustle, is a digital marketing agency. Is
Oh,
basically split up into four parts: website design, content management, social media, and paid ads. Right. It's traditionally been me creating the websites. Right. And one of the things that's really just starting to weigh down on me is like creating websites in WordPress just isn't fun for me anymore.
right,
Right. So I kind of want to like push that. I want to push that off a little bit, because the more my fingers are in the keyboard doing the creative stuff, the less I'm out there selling and getting more clients and things like that.
nice.
So the next steps are to create these venues and these courses to help other people reach where I am today. Right. So basically I want to be talking to the Jeff Mendelson of 2 years ago or a year
Mhm.
ago. Right. So that I can help them get to this stage, as quickly as possible.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because that's the thing. I think a lot of us, especially, it becomes our baby, and we become the bottleneck that stops us from growing and success happening faster. And we've got to learn to delegate or take your hands off the wheel a little bit, and let somebody else take over, huh?
Exactly, and I think that's the biggest, that's the biggest turning point from becoming just a technician. If you read the E Myth, right, we're becoming a technician to actually becoming the whole, the one that controls everything. Because I can't just sit there and be slinging websites all day long. I
Right.
can't be monitoring every dollar of ad spend that my company puts out there. That's why I built a team in order to handle that. Right. And the team that I built, like I don't just bring them on for projects. It's like I tell them, look, we're gonna set up something, and I want you to be with me for years, not months.
Hmm.
Right. And back when we could, I used to fly to meet all these people in different places all over the world. The only one that I haven't met yet in person is my guy in India, right? Because he's in Calcutta, and I just haven't been able to go there yet. But he's one of the best. He's one of the best web developers that I've ever worked with. Gets everything done. Like I send it to him today, he works on it overnight. I have it ready in the morning. It's great, right? So it's people like that like I like to keep on. Like I'll do whatever I can to make sure that they're still on my team and within my circle.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing is it's easier than it ever used to be to help outsource and delegate things. And by delegating it outside virtual assistant stuff, like it's a lot cheaper than most people would think it out to be. And often the quality is often a lot superior too, in a lot of cases.
Exactly. I mean, I speak English pretty well. I was educated in this country, but for me to write, consistently 1,000 word blog post on any particular subject, yeah, it's going to take me a long time. So it'll be a lot, once I put a dollar value on my time, then it becomes much easier for me to ship that off, for someone else.
Any podcasters that have been the big influencers to you, or been mentors to you that's helped you kind of guide you along your way?
I was one of the early listeners to Pat Flynn, right? I think he's a great guy. He puts out a great persona, right? And I really enjoyed the excellence that he puts into everything that he touches,
Hmm.
right? So that was just someone that I really admired early on. And then it really became a question of like not necessarily going to my go-to hero, like, binge out on Gary Vee or on James Schrenko or, any of that. Right. It's really just trying to figure out like, okay, I want to learn this particular, I want to learn this particular thread or, something new. So I go out and I fish it based on topic, not necessarily on personality. Right. I mean, I know personality has something to do with it, but really what I'm trying to do is, learn. Steve Larson, I think, said it the best. It's just in time learning, right? I don't need to, get a degree in paid ads in order to be a paid ads expert. I could watch a few YouTube videos to familiarize myself enough with the process so that I'm smart when I go and hire a real paid ads expert to manage this part for me, right? That for me, the just in time learning just really, it makes sense, right? And it allows me to know enough about any particular subject to be dangerous, right? And then I just let my team handle the rest.
What is, with your episodes and everything, all the big tips, what's a big tip from one of your episodes that surprised you? Is like, aha, this had a big impact on me.
Travis Brown. So I'll show you. Travis Brown came up with this really great product called Pod Decks, right? Yeah. So I keep them here on my desk, right? I don't know if you're familiar, but I'll just open it up real quick. And basically it's just flashcards with, with content ideas. What's your greatest regret? What living person do you most despise, right? Or who's your favorite hero of fiction, right? So I bought this from him, and then I invited him on the show. And one of the cool things that I think is incredibly underused, and I'm really surprised as to why, is just about every platform, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, LinkedIn, you can leave voice messages, right, for somebody, right? Now, I get a lot of messages daily on LinkedIn. Hey man, would you like to see my new process? Da, 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 right? So any person can read it and decide, I'm not going to answer this guy. This guy's just trying to sell me, right? But if you record it as a voicemail, or even better as a video using something like BombBomb or Dub, right? If you record it as a video and you personalize it, oh my God, your engagement just shoots up through the roof, right? Because no one is going to leave a voicemail message unread, right? It just doesn't happen either on your phone or as a text message, as iMessage, or even in your Instagram messages. It always gets heard. And I think when people hear, like, hey, Scott, nice to meet you. Thanks for connecting with me on Instagram. I really like what you're doing here. Just hearing your name, right, is a wonderful thing. Like it really wakes people up. And I tried that a couple of times and I was like, oh my God, is he right? Because, like you try to send, a bunch of unsolicited messages, they don't really hear it. But if you do something personalized, your image and your persona and your what you stand for floats all the way up to the top. It makes you so much more memorable.
Mm-hmm. Such a good tip there. Yeah, anytime that one-on, something we've implemented with what we do with our classes and teaching, and anybody that opts in for different things, is that text message going out, hey, just wanted to say thanks for opted in or whatever like that, or thanks for leaving a message. Oh, you're so right with that. That little stuff goes a long way, and it is so underutilized across the board out there. Such a great tip out there for you.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to count how many times someone video messaged me across any platform, I don't know, 3. It's like I literally can count it on one hand, and like I still remember the names of the people who did that, right? And that just makes it so much more memorable.
Yeah. Yeah, because
even if you don't end up doing business with them going forward, it does take a little bit more time. It takes a little bit more of a comfort level. Maybe you need to buy a lav mic instead of bringing this big thing around with you all over the place. But for the most part, people enjoy it, right? And it won't go unread.
Yeah, that's the truth. Best. Speaking of tech, what's the piece of tech that you can't live without, Jeff?
My iPhone now. Not only because I take 1,000,001 pictures, but I think it's great that you heard the cliche that we sent someone to the moon on with a computer that had 4K on it, right? And even with my kids, they have iPhones as well, and like, well, Papa, how am I gonna remember to do this? I'm like, well, you got that $1,000 phone in your hand. Why don't you turn on the calendar app, right? And like put it into my calendar, right? Come on. Like you got this, you got this thing there. I think what, the convergence of these services, right? That you can see them on your iPhone, on your iPad, on your laptop, at a kiosk if you're in the airport, right? You can really get involved and like answer quickly, just about everything, right? Before COVID, I was traveling, at least once a month to some pretty cool places, right? And it used to be where I would tell people that okay, I'm going on a trip, see you later, right? Now I don't even bother, right? I don't even bother, because if I fly to the UK, for example, maybe I'll have to take a phone call at 8, 9 o'clock at night while it's still daytime here. But that's my freedom to be able to take that call and to work from a different locale. Like my wife had this, had a team meeting in Madrid last year, right? So I literally tagged along, right? She went to her office, I went to my WeWork, and in the Friday afternoon, we rented a car and drove to Rioja, right? And it was great, right? Because I didn't miss a beat. It was literally an overnight flight. I landed, put my stuff away, went to the WeWork, started working a little bit. Yeah, it was a little ragged, after that, right? Because of the time difference. But for the most part, working from another latitude, right? It's so invigorating. It's so, it just makes things so much more creative, and I love doing it. So it's one of the biggest things I miss, but my portable tech allows me to do that.
Yeah, I echo that. I used to travel at least once or twice a week, whether it was here domestically or internationally for vacation. I am missing the itch, the travel bug. I cannot wait for things to open up. And that's the beautiful thing. This serves so well if I don't want to drag my laptop, or I can do, not only photos, like you said, made a lot of photos, but heck, recording a podcast even on this is a feasible thing in some situations for things. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You don't need to go big. Yeah. I mean, let's just say I don't take this microphone with me everywhere that I go.
Yes. You don't want the extra 3 pounds. That's an extra pair of shoes or something else.
It's probably another backpack if I bring the boom arm too. So.
Exactly, Jeff. Well, hey, what's the best way for those that are listening here to connect with you, to find out more about what you're doing and stay in touch with you?
Sure. I have a website, jeffmendelson.com. The podcast is there. Just click on podcast. There's a contact form as well. You can find me on all the socials. LinkedIn is probably the best. And I love paying it forward. I love talking about this stuff. So anyone, just please, if you feel inclined, just please reach out and say hi. Awesome.
Now I got a question for you. With you getting all these amazing tips and software things, have you put a pretty good resource page together with affiliate links to help monetize?
So I have been having HR issues the past couple of weeks, and that is the one reason why I do not have that yet. And you know what it is that if you look at the Mixergy model, right? If you go to Mixergy, what Andrew Warner has done, he's basically put all that together, right? Where he affiliates with these people that are creating these courses, and he charges a nominal fee in order to get access to some really great content. So I'm right now at the critical mass where it's like, yeah, you really should start putting this shit together.
Yeah.
Right. So it's coming.
Hey, next step, right?
Next step. Yeah. I mean, it takes a little bit of planning. I mean, I already have my podcast, categorized, right? Like what kind of topics they're talking about, but I'm a little shorthanded right now. And, that's one of the things that's going to pop up.
Awesome. Well, hey, Jeff, thanks so much for coming on IPD here in Impactful Podcast Day 2020 and giving, man. I appreciate it so much.
You got it, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir, man. Look forward to when we can hang out or grab a beer at some point, huh?
You got it. Yeah.
Go Yoda.
All right, brother. Make it a great day.
You too, bud. Thanks, man. Yep, Liz, that was great. Exactly. Liz said this is great. Tip on recommendations from Jeff. Yes, definitely. It's okay to lurk for people that are jumping on here. We had different speakers jumping on here. It's okay to lurk throughout. List what's going on. That's the whole idea of having fun here. We can learn from everybody. All right. So good stuff there.